वेलकम बैक टू अनदर एपिसोड सुखान अनप्लग्ड। अभी तक जो हम देखते आए हैं वो ये था कि वी वर टॉकिंग अबाउट समथिंग वेरी स्पेसिफिक, वी वर इनवाइटिंग एक्सपर्ट्स और पीपल विद सम experiences. So we are going to continue that tradition, but at the same time it's a bit change. As you can say, there's a different format as well. After a long resistance, we are going to the typical podcast format. I hope you like it. Otherwise, please do let us know. But today the conversation is not about anything particular, but then again, it's about everything that affects your life. So, what are we going to do? We are going to talk about life. So, it's not about our professions, it's not about, our relationships, perhaps a bit about that, but it's not a technical advice, it's just two people, two friends sitting together and sharing their experiences. So it's a new experiment for us, but we hope it can resonate with you and we can continue doing it in future as well, because of course we have a lot to say. We have crossed our mid-30s, so here we are trying to share and transfer some of our wisdom, quote unquote, to you. So joining me today is my good friend Naima, and she is by profession a lawyer, but our friendship goes beyond any profession or that kind of relationship. We have been friends, we have seen each other grow, we have shared experiences, shared traumas, and that's where the idea of this podcast comes from. Then let's sit together and share some of those with you as well, and see how common are they, how uncommon are those experiences, if there is anything we can learn from you, and vice versa. So first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Hamad. It's
No
so good to
problem.
be here back at Dr. Khan.
Back at Daftar Khan. So just to give another disclaimer, we are sitting at the new studio at Daftar Khan Boulevard. It's the Daftar Khan studio, and we are really great and happy to be here. And if you want to use the space, please do. So this was the paid promotion that is just plugged in. But how are you doing, Rama?
I'm good, I'm good. Happy to be here, yes.
So what wisdom are you going to impart into our brains today?
I think pretty much that you summed it up. We're in our mid-30s, right at the cusp of crossing the millennial, right in the middle of, we're also the generation that's almost seen it all. So I think the millennials, which we are part of, we're just trying to navigate this very difficult, trajectory that we've lived so far. So let's just start.
Yeah, and we are getting closer to, as the meme says, closer to 2050 than 2000.
Yes.
And it's really hard to believe. But because for me, 20 years ago is still 1980.
Yes.
But that's how life is.
Yeah.
So let's start with something you just mentioned. That's, the 30s, right? So what is one thing that, nobody warned you about, but here we are?
Yeah, I think time and again something that resonated and then I learned it the hard way was that you have to be your own savior. Like literally nobody is coming to save you. And that was just reiterated throughout my personal and professional life, right? And that's something that I had to learn when life happened. So the fact that you need to have your own back, and nobody's got your own back like the way you do. So you have to be your own hero or heroine of your life. And that sort of manifests in various facets of your life. So that has been one thing that no one warned or even imparted to us, right? So that certainly stood out. That's one.
Okay. So adding to that, right? So one thing that I never expected or never imagined happening to me was that you had to let go of that lifestyle and take care of your physical health. So before 30, I remember during my university and MBA and all those days, the I think the maximum sleep I used to get was like 4 hours, 5 hours. You'll sleep at 3, 4, you'll be up at 7 on roads, and then driving all the way to LSE to be in class at 8, then coming back, doing your stuff again 4,
Yes.
5 hours. And you survived.
Yeah.
You survived 4 years of bachelor's, then there was like 1 year
Yeah.
of MBA. You used to eat whatever you want to. And during my 20s and early 30s, I was not a gym enthusiast. I didn't
Yeah.
used to go or work out regularly. So when 30s happened, suddenly your body resets actually.
Yes.
So that was one thing that really shook me up, because suddenly whatever I was been doing for years was not helping me, and
Yeah.
I had to change.
Yes.
So that's when I started working out as well. Still a long way to go, but now I'm much more aware about the
Yeah.
physical side of things, that I have to take care, because as you said, nobody is going to
Yeah.
come to save you, and more importantly, nobody can save your body. You
Yeah.
have to do it yourself,
Yeah.
just like your brain.
No, health is certainly one of the lifestyles that I won't call it a warning, but it's just is another change that naturally also
Yeah,
happens.
yeah,
Like I
of course.
remember, you've known me. I'm the person who used to do high intensity training 6 days a week, go to the gym, go do all of these courses and attend them. But 6 days just turned into three days a week Pilates or yoga, which I do, which is more now mindful, conscious sort of
Right.
living and breathing, intentional, working out. Whether it's the mental muscle, whether it's emotional, we'll come to that. But it's everything now, right? Mind, body, and soul. So that's something. That wasn't alarming, but it also naturally came over a period of time as life happened. So that also part of how I ended up, cultivating and nurturing that, coming to save myself in a way that, okay, this is how you're gonna be now.
Fair enough, fair enough. So let's talk about. I remember I asked this question recently during one of the sessions at Daftar Kham,
Yeah.
and the guest had a very interesting answer. But I would like to hear your answer first and then go to that point. So the question was, if there was an advice you could give yourself like 10 years ago, what would it be? Like 25-year-old, or 24, 22-year old self, what would that
Yeah.
be?
I think at 24, 23, I was right. I came back from London, I did my master's and had no idea like what you're doing. You're just hustling. It's completely a mindless, like another hustle that you just have to be in that rat race, reach a certain position or a title or whatever that you can't see. And I think that's something that I still struggle with till date. But at that time when I was 25, I wish I could have told myself that, look, Naima, don't take your life too seriously, that you forget to live in the moment, live in the present. I mean, that has been such an important thing, and even till date, like I have to bring myself to the present as well. But I wish that was something that I still, knew back then at 25. That, look, don't forget to breathe in the middle. Don't forget to live that journey. And it's as cliched as it may sound,
Yeah.
it's actually not. Like, and I'm one of the person that still takes life too seriously, right? So in that never-ending hustle, I wish, like, I want to tell that 25-year that, look, don't forget to live life.
I think I will totally agree with you on that, because back then it was very, I wouldn't say I was hard on myself, right? So you had to study, you had to get good grades, you had to reach somewhere,
Yeah.
you needed a job,
Yeah.
you can't skip a class to
Yes.
go to a concert or watch a movie, or just hang out with friends,
Yeah.
because it felt like you were wasting time
Yes.
and wasting your life. But yes, if I am to look back, I would actually
Yeah.
lighten up, loosen up. Lot
Yeah.
of things that I couldn't do back then, uh,
Yeah.
a bit, it hurts me a bit,
Yeah.
but it's not like, and I can't do them right now again, because with kids and everything, you can't just, go to a far-flung area with no mobile coverage for like 2 weeks and, camp
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So that's not possible anymore. Not just because getting old, but generally a lot of other things, like you have job, you have kids, and you have everything. But yeah, back then, now I see a lot of next generation, Gen Z, or
Yeah.
they are talking about their experiences, because we have a very young team here.
Yeah.
So I still get to interact with a lot of young people here. So they share their experiences from university, and they are very different from mine,
Yeah,
because
from
they're
millennials, yes.
and they're very lively. Basically,
lively
they went to
and-
trips, they are going to concerts there, and we didn't. It's not like we never had the chance.
Yeah.
Things were happening back then, but
Yeah.
we just didn't do it.
Yeah, and we were taking ourselves too seriously,
Yeah.
and we were taking life too seriously. And even though we did have our own share of experiences as well, but I think this is just an important thing that stood out, that I wish I never. I still take myself too seriously. I don't know if being a lawyer is part of it, but certainly, like, we're very self-critical still. I think millennials are certainly very critical of themselves.
We were brought up that way.
Yeah, we brought up that way,
Yeah.
right? That you have to be risk averse.
Yeah.
That, don't let your parents down. keep, the entire, khandan's izzat is in your hands, right? You have to be the honor and the honorable at the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
time.
yeah.
So, yeah.
So is that the adulting we are talking about here then?
Is that?
The adulting we are talking about here.
Oh, certainly, adulting. Yes, we're beginning. It's at the cusp of adulting for sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think those things have carried forward, and it's not like even we are aware of that, but it's very hard to let go of that stuff even at this stage.
Yeah.
They are ingrained, I
They're
would say.
ingrained. Last night I was just sitting with another very old friend of mine, and they were like, Naima, we were just 5 minutes into the conversation. And after hearing me, they were like, Naima, I think you're very hard on yourself.
Yeah. I have told you that many
Yes,
times.
and you've told me. And then I was like, wow, another friend, two friends of mine have already told me this, right? Which means that it's just so an innate part of the millennials, like how we've been brought up,
Yeah.
that we're always so anxious, we're always so, doubting ourselves. There's always this imposter somewhere at the back, even though we've achieved so much, right? But it just never sets in. The way that I see people 10 years younger than me, right? It's completely different.
I would,
I mean,
counter argue.
yeah.
They basically there are pros and cons. So the kind of environment they grew up, it has pros and cons.
Yeah.
I'll give you a short example, a small but
Yeah.
relatively realistic example. Growing up, terrorism was not really a part of our lives. For instance, our activities were not really hampered by terrorism, right? When we're in school, at least, or college, and up to even university. But now I see 20 years old, 25-year-old who were, in their schools or universities during 2007 to 2013, 14 era, especially, blasts happening every Friday.
Yeah.
And then, schools getting cancelled. They are living the smog. My children are basically being brought up in smog.
Yeah.
This is something that was unheard of. So those were relatively peace times, but then again, we also never had those kind of opportunities these kids have today.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they've actually been born in the middle of TikToks and the Twitters and everything, right? Because they've been surrounded by this complete outrageous media
Of course, we are
platforms.
still sitting with mics and camera,
Yeah.
and people are making stuff on their mobile
Yeah,
phones. They
I
don't
mean,
care about a
exactly,
studio
yeah.
as per se.
Yeah, exactly. And with the generation that, I mean, though we're still young, we're very much young, but we still want to write, right? Write in the newspapers. Very excited. I remember when my first article
Yeah.
came, I told you when yours comes, you put it on the link, and we're still very excited, right?
Yeah.
And that's still a mindset shift. Like, we'll go for a talk and attend it, right? Rather than just doing it online. But I mean, still, no comparison. It's a beautiful generation
Of course,
both
of
way.
course.
But certainly, I think 30s and mid-30s are certainly, it's a very interesting age to be in. Still a lot to learn, but already I think I feel a decade and a half, decades have been lived in a couple of weeks as well. Because when I look back, we will be like, oh, Naima, you're overthinking a lot, or maybe, it's something in you. But that's, again, something millennials would do as well. They will think and they will overthink something.
Right.
And do the vibe check
Yeah,
very differently.
Of course. But the good thing about them is that they're risk takers. They are way more confident for the right or wrong reasons.
Yeah.
But yes, they are. And as we move forward, I think we are moving away from the traditional structure of the 9 to 5 jobs. They are more into doing their own stuff. Some of them succeed, some of them don't. But that's the Darwin's theory. Then in any case, but hopefully we'll see a better world. Hopefully, rather than a world that has been marred by disinformation and extremism and radicalism. But that's what. But coming back to our discussion, because this is not a lecture or comparison on the next generation, we are not going to talk about you guys. You guys are doing that enough. But how do you prioritize or take self-care in all of this? And I'm talking about today. What we have done before that's a different story. But what's your understanding today of self-care?
I think for me, again, it sort of hits upon how you take care of your mental health, how you take care of and how that manifests in your physical health.
How do you
But
do that?
how do I do that is certainly there's certain routines that I have inculcated over a period of time. Yes. So, and And one of them has certainly been, and I want to say, put a disclaimer that it's a privilege, it's a luxury to go and pay for counseling.
Right,
Because
right.
I wish I had done that sooner, but then again, resources nahi hote, you don't get the right kind of people. But I think when I had a breakdown of a relationship, right when I was 30, I sought out counseling. And I wish I had done that sooner. And it's been 6 years. Whenever I feel stuck, I go and seek counseling. So I think that's part of my self care routine, which
Right.
sort of helps me mentally and emotionally. That's certainly how I try to take care of myself. That's one of the tools I go and tap into. The second is certainly seeking out my community, friends like yourself, that really lift you up. That's part of your self care routine as well, because it's not bubble baths and chocolates and etc. And it's certainly the third is what do you consume, right? From what you see to the media to the people, because you are the sum of 4 to 5 people that you sit with, interact with. So what information, what energy you're consuming, I'm very mindful of that.
Mm,
So
mm,
edit often. I That's my self care routine. Another self care routine. Yeah, so it's a combination of
mm.
all of these things, and of course, like you touched upon this point earlier as well, in your mid 30s, it's also what you eat,
Yeah, of course.
right? Certainly mindful of that, because our bodies don't digest the way
Of course.
they used to digest food earlier. And yeah, trying to find little moment where you feel alive as well,
Mm,
right? Because happiness is fleeting, and you really have to hunt those moments of joy in the middle of chaos, literally.
mm, mm,
Because mid 30s, it's not easy. Another part of self care is going to my Zizu, who's my chocolate brown Labrador.
mm,
He is certainly, pets are way of, just, they really are a stress buster. So for me, that's also part of self care.
mm,
But yeah, genuinely just um, surrounding myself, and I try to edit often,
mm,
because those energies and those really manifest and really do tell me that, look, if I walk into a room, I will know that, look, I can't hold this conversation with another person for 5 minutes, because it's not gonna help my health in any way. So I guess these are certainly things that I try to do habitually.
mm. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
taking on to that, I think we should move to the next point,
Yeah.
and this is something that I would also like to talk about.
Yeah.
That's the role of friends. So when I went through a rough
Yeah.
year or two actually, couple
Yeah.
of years back,
Mm.
so I remember friends played a huge part. And one of the things I always talk about is that I didn't want to burden one particular friend with that, because it was obvious that it's going to exhaust him or her eventually if I'm just going to piling up all of my crap on
Yeah.
that one person. So I interestingly, unknowingly, devised a strategy where I had like 4, 5, 6 people,
Yeah.
and I used to pile stuff on them. One friend once a week. So that way,
That's
they
a good
were
strategy.
that way they were able to tolerate me
Yeah.
and my stuff, and they only had to do that once a week.
Mm.
But I had like 6 people lined up for the entire week.
Yeah.
So there was an entire community that helped me, because I think if we are just relying on 1 or 2%, it becomes difficult and unfair to that friend as well to be there all the time, because whatever the situation, or they're married, single,
Yeah.
working, non-working, whatever, it's kind of inhuman to be
Yeah.
there all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't expect of that any person in your
Yeah.
life. So yeah, that was one of the strategies. But that particular group, and unfortunately, or I don't know, fortunately, all of that group has kind of disbanded.
Mm.
A lot of people moved abroad. We used to meet a lot,
Yeah.
but then life
Life
happened.
happens, yes.
But a lot of those people have moved abroad.
Yeah.
Some of them, like myself, are married and busy in their kids. So it's not like impromptu kism ke meetups. You message, what are you doing after work? Okay, let's go and do whatever you want
Yeah.
to. But yeah, that part really helped me to get through that. So the point I was trying to make is, we often say, we don't have anyone to talk to, या बात करने से क्या होगा, but what help it would be to meet the same person every day or every week,
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
your frequency is. but it helps.
Yeah. No, adulting friendships and those friendships, look, it's not easy to make new friends when
Of course.
in mid-30s, right?
Yeah.
I would rather call them acquaintances, right?
Yeah.
Or, ex-acquaintances or ex-colleagues or something. So I think, like for example, our friendship and the likes of people similar to us, I think we've nurtured it over a period of time and literally seen each other through highs and lows. And that really then frames your entire story of friendship as well. No matter after how long you meet.
Yeah.
And, it remains the same and it remains genuine. And that genuinity is so rare, it's priceless. Like if it had a tag, I don't think you can buy it. You can't buy it on a shelf, you can't buy it in any shop. And I do want to, I always reiterate this to anybody I say in a matter of friendship, that here, my friends have sort of come through when my own blood sometimes hasn't, right? So I want to say blood is not thicker than water, right? And here, I have because I've gone and chosen those friends that have become family. So certainly blood is not thicker than water, and in moments of sheer despair, it's just a phone call. And like you said, it's good to have distributed friendships all over the world. And when life happens, you have to tap into them. And they will come through.
Just to, sorry, I'm cutting you off, but also, you have different kind of relationship with different people. Some people are really good at emotional support, for example. Some of them are always giving rational advices, which are annoying at times as well, because sometimes you just want them to listen. So that is also a good strategy to have different people for different reasons.
But friendship is certainly a lifesaver. I think when family doesn't come through, then your chosen family certainly helps you ride those waves of life.
Right. So earlier you were talking about being hard on ourselves. Let it be our relationships or our professional successes or failures or whatever. So how would you define success today?
I was thinking about it, and I think success for me every time, Hamad, is whenever I get to feel alive. I get to feel joy. Like yesterday, I was listening to this new song by Bruno Mars. It's called "Die with a Smile," and the way his voice goes to a certain pitch and then comes down, and the lyrics and the music, sheer joy. So success for me is getting a ticket. I know I'm drawing it very simplistic, but that is success, right? Like when Naima goes and buys a concert ticket and goes and attend, I've succeeded. People used to ask me, "Oh, Naima, are you happy where you've reached in your career?" I said, I made it to this position in Dubai. I think, for now I have. So I think success is also staying in present, right? Not thinking about the past, but also not thinking about the future. That's a very important distinction, because I don't equate it to happiness at all. Success for me is all equated to how present I can be. Success is also my health. Am I healthy? Right.
Yeah, of course.
Success is having my mother around me. I feel that every day, that's my moment of succeeding at something. I equate it to that. So it's just these little but very pivotal, perhaps sometimes poignant moment in life where I say, okay, I think overcoming bringing myself out of some dark moments, that's success for me.
So would you also call it joy? Things that you just described?
I think that's a very good point that you've brought up, because even till date, I think that's also one of the lessons I want to impart to myself daily, that joy and pain are two contradictory emotions that I hold at the same time. It's also fear and hope that so nobody taught us to hold these two contradictory emotions, daily as well. Like I carry both of they're the same. Fear and hope is the same emotion, contradictory emotion of the same coin, like two sides of the same coin.
But you were told to only cling on to hope.
Exactly, hope, right? But no, I'm also fearful, right? So they're two faces of the same coin, two sides of the same coin. And I think if I say, yes, I'm joyful, but I'm also hurting inside. I'm also fearful that what will happen. So I don't know if this answers your question, but that's a very important thing, emotion that I'm always oscillating between.
Mm-hmm. I think
Yeah.
joy should be found. We can find joy in the relatively smaller things rather than the big targets and dreams. Because I remember, at least for me, what happens is there is anticipation leading up to something, and when it happens, it's just gone
Yeah, it's just gone.
immediately.
It's so fleeting, right?
Yeah, and but that's the sad part.
That's the
If
sad.
you were actually anticipating something and you're leading up to for like days, and when it happens, you should be able to enjoy it for days as well. But that
Yeah,
doesn't happen.
that hasn't happened. And I do want to say that success, I thought that my success actually lies in going and landing a job in Dubai,
Right, right.
holding another title. And it's like Naima has just been competing with her past version of Naima, and then she suddenly pivots, and this is okay. Now Naima jumped this loop now,
Yeah,
but then I've lost all that success and joy,
yeah, yeah.
and then I'm like setting this benchmark that is so difficult,
Yeah.
and then it spirals back, right? I go into this, oh, if I can't do this, that means you're not good enough.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just so that joy in living the present, that's certainly, I'm still working on it. It's very hard, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
And that's where resilience comes in, but then it also really messes up a part of you,
True,
right?
true. One of the things, previously I was talking about was, the advice, we were talking about the advice to 25-year-old. And the guest had a very interesting answer, and I think that's now my standard answer as well. And generally, I would like to read that. It's like, it's very hard for me, right? It's easier for me to go back and tell something to the 25-year-old because I have been through all of that stuff, right? But at 25, you don't anticipate a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for you to understand, things could go wrong because we are optimistic, we are hopeful, we are energetic. And if all of those things never happen, I wouldn't be sitting here and talking about that. So it's really hard for,
Yeah.
go back and say to them, don't do this, because why should I tell them don't do
Yeah.
this? Lived your experiences,
Yeah, I think
learn, and then become
that, right?
become that, right?
No, but I think it can't still be black and white because life is all lived in the gray.
Yeah, of course.
But I think if there was a 25-year-old, even if life hasn't happened, I wish there was a like our somebody that we sought to
Of course.
get inspired by. A mentor would have said that, look, at least whenever life is happening to you, good or bad, don't doubt yourself. Don't doubt yourself when you're deep in the trenches,
Yeah.
but also don't get an inflated sense of ego when things are going good for you.
Yeah, yeah.
At least that, training, I
course.
wish, and I know it's very easier said than done, right? That wisdom, everybody's
Comes with you.
struggling, right? But that, I wish somebody had
Of course.
shared.
Another thing that we need to tell our kids, and I definitely plan to do that. I hope that happens. That life is not a race.
Oh, yeah. That's
So
such a good-
not a race with yourself.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about your
Yeah,
past and
yeah.
Trying to beat
Beat
yourself,
your- yes, yeah.
or trying to beat anyone for that matter.
Yeah,
Yes, there's a system that basically is established, that has been established and is operational. You can call it capitalism or whatever you want to. It's a race, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You have to do from X to Y, then to Z. Otherwise, you are doomed.
Correct.
Right?
You have to, tick mark all the
Yeah.
check boxes.
So your validation comes from external
External, yes.
elements or external sources, but that shouldn't be the case. And that is why, coming to your original point, we miss out the joy
Enjoy.
of that
Yeah,
particular moment.
And by 30s, right, like traditional millennials that we've been, that you have to get married by certain age,
Yeah,
you have to
of
get have kids by certain age,
Yeah.
you need to be well settled and start
You have to own
an
a
earning-
house,
yeah.
have a
but
car.
none of that happened. My relationship broke down and moved to two countries. I came back, then moved again. So none of that has happened, right?
But that doesn't define, you. That's
exactly,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because life is actually lived in those
Exactly.
moments of discomfort, and actually that discomfort has actually made me grow,
Yeah.
right? Because I haven't been complacent, and that has really nurtured and built up my mental resilience, right?
So basically, it's all
But-
about small wins. We go after the big wins
Yeah.
and the big goals, but I think life is basically built up.
And like you said, right, I've primarily been a soloist and all my life, at least till date, at least for major chunk of my life. And out of choice, out of just making the life choices, or maybe not, but it's just so life has happened that way.
Right.
But I do come back to this quote, and I quote this often now, because somebody said this, that if you want to go fast, you go alone, but if you want to go far, you go together.
Agreed.
And I've only lived most of my life in the former part of it, that it's a sprint. To just go fast, you go alone. And it has only taken me so far, right? But now the longevity game, right, is that you have to have a community.
Yeah.
Have to really, because none of us can do it alone.
Yeah, of course. I agree.
And I think that really resonates to me. And I try to now, not to do it solo. But as life happens, you can't go far without having good team members, professionally, personally. And it does take a village to, raise an adult as well.
True.
Yeah.
So I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
We'll keep on trying. Maybe we'll sit again and talk about something in particular as well. But today was just about talking about life in general, sharing our experiences, and let's see what our peers and fellow age people say about it, and if they are willing to participate or encouraging us enough to take it further. We are more than happy to do that. But thank you for joining today. It was fun talking to you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And wishing you all the very best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in. Allah Hafiz.